What's up, guys? Welcome to the Couple Nurses Podcast with your hosts, Matt Strawcheck and myself, Peter Findera. Hope you guys are having a good day. Make sure you guys check us out on Instagram, check out our YouTube, Facebook group. We got some posts coming up currently. They've been up. Having a good time everywhere.
We are having a great time. Do you have the laughies today?
I do.
I feel like I'm 4
And allergies as well, so my eyes are red. This damn pollen around here stressing me out, man.
Stressing your immune system, definitely.
Dude, fall is the worst for me.
So right now I'm feeling like it's 4 a.m. and I'm getting those late night laughies at work where I'm kind of joking around with my coworkers and just saying things that shouldn't be said, and we just crack some jokes. So that's how we're feeling today, guys. Full of energy. Peter finally got some sleep because he always looks tired.
Actually, I did not get some sleep, actually.
You did not.
Yeah. Actually, I got a few hours. I got enough to, sustain life.
Didn't you say you are sustaining life? But didn't you say you had a hole in your drywall and you had to
Oh, man,
call a plumber?
That's ridiculous, yeah. So my damn ceiling started leaking in my kitchen and started dripping. And it formed like a giant bubble, which I popped with a knife.
I'm glad you're Polish because, you carried some buckets of water probably.
Well, I used the bucket that I used to wash my floor with, So it was conveniently there.
Okay.
Took out the rag. But now I gotta reschedule my whole week and shit.
What's new in your life?
Well, I got a hole in my ceiling, The leak has stopped, so that's a good thing,
Yeah.
It's a plus. Actually, we caught it fairly quickly, so the plumber's like, yeah, you guys caught it quickly, but I mean, and I gotta hire some. I don't know. I feel like doing any more drywall. I'm just gonna hire somebody to fucking do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just paint over. I'll do the painting, but the drywall shit, I ain't fucking with that. Too much drywall last time. All right, well, let's get back on topic here. So, Matt, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about argumentative topics on nursing, anything that's debatable and will spark some debate. So there's no right or wrong answer for what we say. And also the link between trans fats and early Alzheimer's. There shows a correlation in the blood serum that a Japanese study concluded.
Yeah, it was a big study. It was a lot of people in there.
Yeah, so this study took over 10 years to conclude. And that's a thing where it takes 10 years for us to find out something that we knew, but we can't prove, and it can't be taken off the shelves till there's a study.
Yeah, and you gotta prove your point, and it kind of sucks because a lot of times they prove these things unhealthy or damaging to your body. Like this, the one took 10 years, so we could have been doing something that's really bad for us for 10 years, and we just find out about it that it's bad for us today.
Yeah.
So imagine how much consumption we were incurred.
So trans fatty acids, they're known to increase heart disease, strokes, diabetes, but now they're saying that it's linked to dementia. And what dementia is, for some people that don't know, it's an overall disease that kind of progresses, and it's characterized by a decline in memory, language, problem solving, and thinking. And if you go into, it starts affecting your everyday abilities to do activities. And worst case of dementia that I've seen where the patient literally becomes nonverbal. So he literally loses his ability to use language, which is learned from childhood. That's crazy.
It's actually really crazy. I know I talked about it before, but like forgetfulness, like occasional forgetfulness, that's not a sign of dementia or anything like that. But if you're forgetting more than usual, and that's not just because you're getting older, you might actually have some dementia. There's a lot of times that we see people that refer to their friends by like their first names, and then the daughter comes in and they say, no, he's been dead for 10 years. Or sometimes patients say, oh, my wife, but their wife might have passed away 5 years ago. And it's very interesting how this like disease takes over, because like on the outside they look fine. It's not like a broken leg where you could get a prosthetic or fix a broken leg. This is internal, and we don't know what goes on. Like the person's generally healthy in the physical aspect, but in the mind, they're sick.
It's like they lose the perception of what's in front of them, and they start replaying memories, and they start creating reality out of it. It's very interesting, and that's sometimes how the subconscious works too. If you go to bed, your subconscious is trying to make of what happened today, and if you had a stressful time in your day, you might dream about it because you're trying to resolve that issue in your mind. Right. So it seems like Alzheimer's or dementia just activates old memories, and they carry on with the story. I don't know if you notice, sometimes they're very fearful when they have dementia. They tell these stories, you're like, what the heck? It's weird. Or imagine like you have a patient that's like 70 calling their mother at late at night. Doesn't that creep you out at work?
Yeah, man. Especially because I used to work in a nursing home back in the day, where I was a CNA, like a nurse for like 2 months of my career, and I did night shift, and people would be calling random names because a lot of these people are sundown, and that usually happens at night. They would call random names, or they would tell you stories, or they would tell you what they did yesterday, and you're like, that never happened. And like the disease of the mind is always interesting because, like I said before, it's like physically, they could be healthy. It just like their mind is gone, and they could do normal tasks to a certain extent before the disease completely takes over. Because there's like that middle ground of like Alzheimer's and dementia where you can still function, you can still go to the store, you can still drive a car, you can do all this thing, except your recollection of things happening, it's inaccurate. You refer too much of the past, so like your short-term memory is gone, but your long-term memory is there. It stays there. So always found it very interesting where people could shop around, do all these tasks, feed themselves, go to the store, drive a car, pay bills. But when it comes to memory and remembering what they did yesterday, they would forget. Pretty insane.
It must be affecting a certain part of the lobes.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the study of what exactly it showed. So the study was published by the Journal of Neurology, and it showed high levels of trans fats were linked to Alzheimer's and dementia, which increased by 50 to 75% your risk. And what's different from this study is usually they do health surveys and they give a little dietary surveys to find out what exactly the person's eating. But they started with people, 1,600 Japanese men and women that were at the age of 60 that did not start having dementia. And what they did is they checked the serum. What was the blood test?
Like uric acid. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, I have it. Let me tell you right now.
It's basically
Ellatic acid.
Ellatic acid, and that's basically part of the actual structure of the trans fat itself, right?
Yeah, it is a trans fat.
It's a molecule.
Yeah.
And so they analyzed 10 years, and it showed the risk, and we know it's a real thing. Of course, this study says maybe because they can't give definite proof because Alzheimer's could also be neurologically associated with genetics and things like that. But there is a strong correlation. And the food industry loves using these trans fats. Why? They're cheap to produce, there's a longer shelf life, and the texture. And that's anything from your cakes, your pies, anything that tastes super good, that's processed, the cookies, they all have it. And it even pisses me off because the peanut butter that we have at a hospital has the, hydrogenated vegetable oil. And what happens is your body's not able to break this oil down compared to a natural source of it. And
That's how it works?
Yes. And I guess it starts clotting something off. I don't know if it's vasculature, but somehow it's correlated.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, like, Matt said this is a 10-year study, right? This is done 10 years ago or 10 years long, and we don't find out about these kind of studies until, the 10-year mark. So we're, behind on this aspect. But especially with the trans fats. At one point in 2013, the FDA made a judgment call saying that hydrogenated oils are no longer generally recognized as being safe to eat. And then they slowly try to push for these companies not to use it, but it's hard for these companies to not use it right now because that's what they use. That's like their staple ingredient of all the food that they're making. So we gotta push for changes because clearly it says that this is not recognized as safe for consumption.
Yeah.
And we see this in all types of food still.
And it's the reason why it's not safe because there's the correlation that's guaranteed within trans fats and strokes, diabetes, and heart disease. So in 2015, we were supposed to completely ban them off our shelf and the market, but the company started reaching out to the FDA and they were granted extensions. So we have till January 1st of 2020 to actually see this happen. So we'll see if they actually comply with this.
I don't think they're going to comply.
You think they're going to ask for another extension?
Oh, for sure. How many foods do you still see in a grocery store that have hydrogenated oils?
A lot.
Exactly, yeah. It's not going to...
The chips, not so much now. If you notice, everything says 0 trans fat. So that's a huge push for that.
That's true. But
I can't wait.
Look at my label.
I can't wait till we start getting labels that says no high fructose corn syrup. Because it still pisses me off when I buy ketchup and it says
natural,
and the ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. Like, nah, dude, this shit's made in the lab. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a whole marketing ploy. Like marketing. Natural and fat free or low fat. It's all marketing ploy. So you actually got to read the box because it's a lot easier to see the word natural and you think, oh, that's natural, good for me, instead of actually turning the label. So there's different. Because I don't think anybody regulates what these terms actually mean. So you can label if you have your own interpretation of the natural.
Yeah, no. Again, that comes to literacy with nutritional labels and just bringing awareness, right? And that's a part of prevention medicine. Like, hey, why don't we teach these people how to actually read food labels? Just like the heart failure patients say, I don't eat any salt. Like, yeah, but that can of beans or whatever you're eating, tons of salt.
Yeah, and just like most things, just like most things in society, you gotta put a little extra effort to making yourself healthy. Like going to the gym, you gotta actually go to the gym. If you want to eat healthy, you actually gotta look at the nutrition label because the pasta has whole grain doesn't mean necessarily good for you.
I know, man. I'm trying to get away from bread and all that. But let's jump into these argumentative nursing topics. So this is going to be more just very opinion based, just me and Peter's opinion of how we feel about these topics, and just bring some awareness of maybe just to kind of spark your creativity of thinking when it comes to healthcare and our profession and where do we stand.
Right, and if you guys, have any topics that you want to hear us discuss or get our opinion on, feel free to, let us know on YouTube or on Instagram. Just maybe just want to hear us talk about a subject or another, or just hear us debate about something, then feel free to share it with us.
Or you want to hear us talk shit about each other, I'm down to do that.
I'm down.
Rally it up right here. Let's go into the first one, Peter. Is the role of a nurse more important than the role of a doctor?
No, I would say it's not important. I believe that doctors play a.
But who's more important?
I feel
Let's
doctors,
be honest.
I feel that doctors would be more important, to be honest. Well, I guess it depends on the situation.
Right, because we're doing actual patient-centered care, right?
Yeah.
And
So,
we know how nurses feel where the doctor walks in, says some shit, here's a few orders, go figure it out. Or, you call the doctor, hey, the patient's in AFib or something. Okay, run ammo, hangs up the damn phone. Okay, what's the dose? What's the rate? What's going on? Give me some, and we just have to type it in ourselves sometimes because doctors are the way that they are.
yeah, I mean, they're equally respectable job. Well, yeah, I guess you would say.
Remember, this is controversial, so you have to kind of.
I mean, I know, but just I feel like they each have their own role and they play it. But in general, I feel like doctors are more important than the nurses, to be honest.
Okay. They are getting paid the bigger bucks. They are actually diagnosing the patient and doing things to save them.
Yeah, like I think I know a lot about certain disease processes, but then when you sit down and actually talk to a doctor, at least most doctors, they give like a whole different perspective on the physiology of it, and you're just like, damn, yeah, that makes sense. So they are very knowledgeable. They went to school longer. They know more than us on certain topics. But of course, if you're like in a specialized field, then you could probably know more than attending on your specialized field. But yeah, I feel like doctors who went to school longer, it's more. I probably say they're more important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Case closed on that one. What's the next one?
Where's the jab? Today
would have been good to get the jab. I'll knock.
That's right. All right, so next one is, should medical professionals be given a global visa so that they can work wherever they are needed?
I'm going to say no at this one because there is no standard healthcare globally. Like, it's only per country. So American healthcare is different from another country. Therefore, you can't have somebody that comes from Middle Eastern country and just works here because they have no idea about anything, even the simplest things like a sepsis bundle that we're really pushing. Mm-hmm. So as of now, I don't think we should have a global visa. I think that'd be something cool that we should work towards since we have a nursing shortage or there's turnover rates. Maybe people from a foreign country are going to be more thankful for what they have and where they are, and they won't switch jobs. And we won't have as high turnovers as you see now in all these little hospitals.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have to agree with that one. I don't think people should have a global job visa or whatever, because like Matt said, healthcare is different. Like if you go to Europe, they treat certain diseases differently. We have different standards of care here than anywhere else. Like you probably get away with, if you're like a tech, you could probably get away with that working globally because some aspects of patient care are global, and I'm sure a lot of healthcare between us, Canada, and like England or Germany is very similar to the treatment of care procedures where you could travel between those countries, but a global one that's probably would not work out, and especially if you go from here to like an Asian community where they have different common diseases, you're not gonna know how to take care of them. Like for the United States, heart failure is high, but certain other places maybe alcoholism is high or mental disorders are high, and that's what they mainly treat. Maybe
focus.
Like there's a lot of pollution in China. Maybe there's like a lot of respiratory diseases going on. Maybe they're more common than cardiac diseases. So you wouldn't really be, you would be helpful in certain aspects, like more of the hands-on things, but through the thinking process and the disease process and education, you would probably lack on because you would not know how these things are treated.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Next question. What is the ideal working relationship between a nurse and a doctor?
Professional. Same way, I guess, that we see in a hospital where doctor gives orders, nurse does completes the orders, but you also got to have two-way communication. Or the doctor shouldn't like feel less of a person or less knowledgeable if they don't know a certain disease process. Like they should.
Are you talking about a nurse or the doctor right now?
Both. I'm talking about doctor right
Both,
now.
okay.
So if the doctor should be giving orders, he should be the one that's kind of leading. But it's you should be getting nurse's opinion too because they're working hands on with the patient, and it's always good to have somebody else maybe think outside the box. We have the nursing model, they have the medical model, and we kind of
Collaborate.
we collaborate, and our thinking process a lot of times is different. So the doctor might know certain things, but a nurse might catch certain things that might influence the doctor's opinion.
And that does happen.
Yeah, and then same with nurses, you should feel free to ask questions about care, like why are we doing this? Because even though this is standard practice, a lot of times we don't know why this is standard practice. Like a lot of times we know we give ACE inhibitors to people with cardiac disease as a first line, but why is it first line?
I love having conversations like that with a doctor. For example, there was a guy that had a giant bowel procedure and he was bleeding from his fundus, and surgery consulted an interventional radiology to go in there, maybe embolize an artery, meaning cauterize it, burn it so it stops the bleeding. And I asked our doctor, why don't you want to do it? Well, if surgery is going to go in there tomorrow, they're going to need some fresh tissue. And why would I embolize an artery? Then he's not going to have no tissue to work with. What is he going to suture together? So I love having conversation where I don't feel less than the doctor and I'm able to have this conversation. Hey, why are you doing this? So sometimes even as a nurse, this relationship, don't feel less than the other. Have that equality within yourself and have a genuine conversation. There's doctors that are dicks, and that's just the reality of it. They have that God syndrome, but for the most part, try to push for that relationship.
Okay,
That'd be pretty cool, I think.
yeah, that's some good stuff right there, genuine stuff. You can read out the question because for some reason I can't log into my Gmail right now.
Middle of the
Which
show,
is like
huh?
you said,
You should have
yeah.
been prepared.
I was fine before. It just timed me out right now for some reason. So
Next one. How are the impacts of nurses and doctors in healthcare field different? And that's like almost the same question like the one before.
Yeah.
So we see that the doctor's he's more looking at the body like a mechanic. He knows how to fix it, but he doesn't have.
he knows what has to be done to fix it.
He knows what has to be done. We are the hands of the person knows how to fix it and try to get it done. We just have a different spin on things where we're more empathetic, we're more compassionate, and we take the time with our patients because they're in a very uncertain area of life. We help them with their mental struggle in the hospital to kind of overcome everything they're struggling with. The doctor's more like, hey, yo, Pete,
What's up?
you know what? You got that breast cancer. Look at your irregular ass nipple. We're gonna have to cut it out, okay? Peter's like, oh shit, I have an irregular nipple. What if I have cancer? And then a nurse comes in. Peter, I know you're fearful, but everything is going to be okay. We're gonna biopsy this nipple, and even though it's irregular, Peter, I think it might be benign. So we're like, the doctor's very rational, and then we have this. Hopefully, you still have your compassion because nursing does suck sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, it gets rough, and you forget about that, right? But that's the role that's different in between a nurse and a doctor.
Yeah, like we are essentially the middleman.
Yeah.
And like Matt said, doctor comes in, he says his statement because he's got to look at the whole deal, and he's got to treat that tumor as cancerous to get it out, just in case, because if he doesn't treat it as cancerous, then the chance for it spreading, could get bigger, and it could be cancer. Then you kind of misdiagnose somebody, and you kind of got to be there just to get back into reality. Like, hey, this is cancerous, but it could be benign as well. 100% sure till we biopsy it. So yeah, completely right.
And then a fan in the back over there, for those that people are curious. Peter, do you have an irregular nipple?
I don't have a regular nipple.
Okay.
Do you have a regular nipple?
No, but this was just part of the story that I just made up right now. Because I'm sure somebody would be wondering if you have a regular nipple.
No, I do not. I don't think so. My cousin has an extra nipple.
Does he really?
Yeah, like a small extra nipple. I think it's like his
Where's the
upper right quadrant.
Where's the third nipple located?
Upper right quadrant, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Of the chest?
Yeah.
Or in the stomach?
Well, it's like located under his
Chest.
chest, so it's like I forgot. I think it's located where, but he's for sure got a third nipple. That's for sure. I used to make fun of him.
Does he have like sensitive nerve endings there?
I've never. I can't say I've never sucked or touched his nipple.
Okay, because I was wondering.
touched it.
So
I don't think it felt
if
anything.
he gets the third nipple sucked compared to his other two nipples, do you think he has the same sensation in the third nipple?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if he likes getting his nipples sucked. So
I mean, but
not
if he
sure.
did, let's just say,
What if it, I mean, if he did, then do you like getting your nipples sucked? I mean, he's a guy. I don't know too much guys that like to get the nipples sucked, but some people do. But do you like getting your nipples sucked?
this is why we need a premium account here, man. Some off-topic stuff.
Why are you nervous? Why are you getting
Can't
nervous?
say it doesn't. Can't say it's feels bad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I've got my nipples sucked.
But anyways, I'm sure next week people want
Not
to
my
know.
thing. We'll fight. Yeah.
Can you
we'll-
please ask this man? Just please ask him if the nipple feels different, man. Anyways, let's move on.
I don't know about Rudy. 'Cause I don't know if he's self-conscious about it because I used to make fun of him for it. So I don't know if he's self-conscious about it now. So,
So we talked about suicide risks and
Yeah.
in
I was-
teenagers. You increase the risk of your cousin, bro.
I know. No, he's fine.
Imagine
He
it,
always shows.
imagine if he came home and his dad bashes him too about his third nipple, and then at school, and then his good old Peter cousin is bashing him too. Imagine how he feels.
Nah, it wasn't that bad. I didn't
We're-
every day I didn't bring it up. Just once in a while.
Okay.
When he took his shirt off, in the summer, and I forgot that he had it, and I'm like, oh,
How's your third nipple?
yeah.
Did it grow hairs?
I don't know. I haven't seen it
Okay,
recently.
we're done, man.
You know,
we're painting a vivid picture for
I
people.
mean, I could try and come over his house and take his shirt off real quick, examine.
Do you have the questions open?
I do now. I
Okay,
do.
so let's read the next one because I kind of answered my own question.
Okay, so which one is? I think we are on the one. Do you think that the patient suffers as a result of more pressure on the nurse related to working conditions?
This is the one I got. I like this one. Yes. I think healthcare is being bullshit now because of the grid. Everything is becoming more okay. The nurses are doing this bad, or let's just say they notice that there's more increase of pressure ulcer injuries in the hospital. So patients are getting more wounds because laying in bed for too long, and they don't understand that why is this happening? Because we're freaking stressed out. I'm running around. I don't have time to sit down and eat sometimes. But the smallest things can be neglected, like making sure my patient is repositioned, making sure all the sheets are not wrinkled out where they're prone to, getting shear friction or pressure ulcers.
GTIs,
whatever. Yeah. So yes, the patient is suffering because you guys are changing grid, or just recently happened in the hospital that I'm still working for now before I go travel nursing. They changed the grid where if there's 3 nurses and there's a patient, or if there's a nurse open for a room or admission, the nurse goes home and the charge takes a patient. I take the second one.
Yeah.
Like, that's just goofy. They're trying to make money in every aspect, and they're ruining the frontline nurses, and that is causing more meta errors. It's causing all these little injuries that could be prevented. And you know how they combat that? They say, we're gonna sign a binder now, and everybody has to sign it that we checked 4-eye skin and stuff. Like, they punish us for things that are not being done, but they're not realizing why it's not being done. Mm-hmm. So they're treating it like anything else in America, putting a bandage on the symptom.
Yeah, blame it on nurses. Hey, well, some things you can't prevent, but there is nurses out there that provide like poor nursing care, you could say, and as a result, people suffer, and sometimes the hospital does. But I'm just curious on your grid. So if there's 5 patients, you can only have 2 nurses and 1 charge, right? And then you would have 2 patients each, and a charge would take a patient.
Yes. So that,
And then
because originally there was 1 nurse that had an open bed, right? Open for admission. But because it's past 1 o'clock, they're like, okay, guys, well, the unit cannot pay for this many nurses. So now the charge has to take one, and 1 nurse leaves, and that second nurse picks up the other patient. So there's 5 patients total in the unit.
so the charge gets 1, and each nurse gets 2, or
Yes.
the 2 nurses get 3 and 2.
No. 2, 2, 1.
And then if a patient comes in, a nurse picks up a 3rd patient, right?
That charge has to take a second one usually, or we get tripled. And that's what happened that night when this grid thing happened. And it's bullshit.
Yeah. Especially, dude, imagine, like,
And then the charge nurse has to do all these audits. They have to do more. They have to make the schedule. If there's a rapid in this hospital, they have to respond. So, dude, you're stressing this charge nurse out. And then you wonder why no one wants to take the position. No one wants to get paid $1 more for all this stress. Like,
No
it's
way.
not worth your quality of life, man. Like, look at me. Like, I love being involved in all this and trying to make a difference. But do I want to do it in a hospital setting? No, because they just keep taking advantage of me. Like, I'm not able to shine and do things the way I do. For example, like right now where we're having an open discussion and there's a lot of people listening.
right, yeah, especially with the being charged and having a patient. Like, I've had that before, and it sucks because, you're responsible for the whole unit. If there's an emergency going on, you're the one that these nurses call. So you got to not only, take care of the whole unit, you also got to deal with full patient care with this one patient.
Yes.
And it sucks. And plus, if they're charged, you're doing all this paperwork that you got to finish by the morning. You got to make this, for us, you got to make the schedule for the morning shift. And like it all adds up. It might not seem like too much, like, oh, you just have one patient, but all that one patient plus the whole unit, plus whatever else I got to do. And that's definitely, it's not fair. So the question being, does patient care suffer as a result of like pressure on nurses? Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Especially if you have like even getting tripled in the ICU, well, someone's gonna suffer. Let's say you have a balloon pump and like two ventilated patients that are not doing, or they could be doing fine, but the fact that you have two ventilated patients, you still got to run on them every hour or every 2 hours, and then you might miss out on doing your pulses every hour for the balloon pump, and you never know, they might get a clot or something might happen. Balloon pump might misfunction. You don't catch that in time, just because you're stressed because you got this extra workload.
Yeah, and that's why if you're a non-medical professional, you should.
Sorry.
Jesus Christ.
Thunder. Wake up.
Wake up, guys. Don't sleep. Focus on the road. Focus on cutting the grass or whatever you're doing right now. You are right. And people that are non-medical, they should hear this and hear our outcry and try to push for unions or better patient staffing and all that, because we are suffering and we are being less conscious of what the patient is doing because we're so bombarded with things.
Yep.
And we only are going to be more bombarded unless we make a difference. I'm going to start a union one of these days or make some kind of rally. Yeah. But let's move on because we're never going to get through these questions. Is nursing a woman's job? Should the government encourage men to become nurses?
I do not think it's a woman's job. I mean, clearly I don't think it's a woman's job
But it started off as one in history.
Well, whatever, dude. CEO jobs were most male dominant, and
Yeah.
now we have women everywhere. Like same with physicians, it's things. It's 21st century now.
Yes.
Like male or female shouldn't be like an excuse for you to do one thing or not do one thing. Even engineers is a majority male field, but there's females up there trying to do engineering. So everything is more. It's like I say, unisex. Like it shouldn't. Like your sex shouldn't matter on what kind of career choices you have.
It shouldn't, but I feel like we still get looked at like that because.
Think so?
Yes, because we're taking care of older generations usually, right? And look at the 60-year-old grandma, or not a grandma, 60? That's not that old. Let's do 75.
Average age or average life expectancy for male in the United States is 66.9 years.
So that means you're a grandpa by like 45 or 50.
That's actually crazy when I read that online. But that was 2016, so maybe it's higher this time. But it's relevant.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is you still have those older grandmas that are like, can I get a female nurse? Because they don't want to see you on the bedpan or something like that. So it is still, you want to call that sexist to that degree, where there's still people that are viewing us like, oh, that's a male, he shouldn't be doing all these basic, or like there is a preference for a female sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, you shouldn't take it that way because.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I don't want to be a dick, but eventually people are gonna die, and you're not gonna have that thought process anymore. Same with like communism. Like some people are still pro communism or whatever, or you still have the KKK where they're anti-black for whatever reason,
Yeah.
and eventually those people are going to die out because there's not going to have any more funnel for those kind of ideas. And once you don't have anybody to support those ideas, you're not going to have them anymore.
But you're always going to have some new crazy ones that come up, and that's just the cycle of life.
Like Scientology, well, it's off topic. I'm not getting started on Scientology.
Hey, well, man, if it's good, you could crack a joke.
Scientology started as like a big land grab in Florida, according to Joe Rogan, one of Joe Rogan's podcasts, where they own like a bunch of property in Florida, and they kind of use it to bypass taxes because they're considered like a church.
Yep, that's why Vatican's just making hella money.
Mm-hmm. We should have a church of nurses.
What do you want to fund with it though? Can't be anything illegal. So what would you legally do?
Why would it have to be illegal? Why does your first thought process something illegal, huh?
Because
we gotta make some money, but we can't do it illegally.
So let's open up. Well, because you're like, we can't. Let's make some money. Let's open up a church. Well, what are we gonna do? What's the point of it? What are we hiding?
Not hiding anything.
Just being charitable.
My money's already in Panama, so I'm not hiding my money.
Okay. Should night nurses make more than day shift nurses?
Oh yeah, for sure. What other incentive would you
so
give
biased here. We're both night shift nurses.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, give us more money.
If I didn't have more money, I would not be doing night shift. I'm doing it just for differential because that's what other incentive would you give? A lunch coupon? No. If you want me to be a half zombie, in the early years of my life, then yeah, give me more money. Let me at least make some more money out of it because I'm not gonna stay up all night for somebody and get paid same amount as somebody that does it during the day.
Yeah, I'm willing to change soon when I come back from Cali, man. Putting a toll on my life.
And
But yeah, give us more. Because maybe, what's the average? I think you make probably a little bit over 5K, depends where you are and what your differential is. That's a little bit of change, it's not going to lie. That's helping me out. It's helping me fund this podcast. That's why I work night shift.
I wonder whose idea or who thinks that night shift should not have any price incentive.
It's
I
just
wanna see their
it's just a topic. Because sometimes they're like, oh, you guys are night shift. You guys are just, the whole playing cards thing, or you guys have it easy. Like, well, yeah, we have less resources and techs, and like, we have to like figure everything out. Like, I feel like being a night shift nurse, you're so much more independent because you don't have the doctor to rely on, at least these smaller hospitals. And I'm always trying to figure shit out. Like, should I call a doctor? Oh, he's peeing here to, 30 mLs. Like, that's very, what is it called? It's like borderline.
Yeah.
Should you give him a secret bolus?
Nursing bolus.
Have you guys heard about the secret boluses? Sometimes you got to give a bolus.
Yeah, and like nighttime, you have less resources, so you're kind of a little bit more prone to riskier behavior because you kind of got to figure out things quick. So
Risky behavior.
I like riskier behavior, I would say. Like,
You better maintain your license, Peter.
No, I'm not saying like anything
I know, I'm
crazy, like
kidding.
you're giving meds without being prescribed, but like you're more willing to give the atropine before calling a doctor compared to, as a day shift, you have the resource. So you just call the PA or the attending or whoever or resident, whoever's there, and they come with you and you give the atropine. You kind of, you give it before. If it's ordered, you give it. A lot of times our nurses are hesitant at like giving atropine just because it's ordered. They still want that somebody there just in case. So they'll call the physician first and they'll go in together, give the atropine compared to us where we just give the atropine because it's order PR and as needed if you need to give it. And you give it, and then if it resolves, you call doctor, this happened, it's resolved now. Or you say, hey,
you try to troubleshoot some stuff before you call because you have to, because they're going to ask the question like, he's going to get pissed.
Yeah, and you're kind of more limited because like you got to do something. You can't just, wait for a call back. Like me on day shift, I could get a doctor in there probably within 5 minutes or the resident. For us, by the time he pages back, it's going to be at least 15 minutes. And then by that time, the patient could be coding. So
yeah,
that's why I'm saying a little bit more riskier. Instead of waiting it out, you kind of got to do it now and see what happens.
I feel you.
Because even if you don't give it atropine, like I said, you're going to code or you're not really doing anything, to solve the problem. You're just looking at the patient.
Troubleshoot.
Yeah. Next question
this one, we're going to spice it up. Let's go.
Should nurses be given bonuses
for patient outcomes?
What do you think?
I'm going to be silent for a second. Let's hear that airplane there.
I mean, to be honest,
legally, technically, you can't. We can't even take a gift card. We usually take food. But you know what? Every single profession, like sales and all this stuff, they have that incentive that makes you work harder. And we know that, yes, we work harder for our patients. But I think that'd be pretty cool if we kind of ran a test on like giving a little bonus for patient outcome.
That'll be hard to like scale. Like, how would you know if someone's giving good patient care? Like, what are you going to do with those asshole patients, that are never satisfied? Then what if you run in like a month or you keep getting those? Are people going to look at you as a less of a nurse because you're not hitting your goals?
Well, yeah, but you're using it as just being observed from a survey. Imagine if you're doing a survey, the outcome, like, hey, you just saved this.
So you're going to let you want to let a patient's opinion about their care judge how you are as like a nurse?
That's how we get judged, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of these surveys are like 1, 2, 3, and 4. But if you don't get the 4s, then that doesn't mean shit. Like if you don't get the 5 stars, then it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter if you got 4 or 4.5. If you get the 5 stars, so that doesn't count. So imagine if you get those patients that, they coded, you got them out of, they basically died on you and you brought them back to life and now they're walking home, but they're pissed off because they remember just the last month of their hospital stay and they weren't satisfied with their meals, or because they weren't given the bedpan in time. Like it's a good idea if you could find an honest and good way of judging someone's nursing care.
And you can't, and that's why these surveys suck because just like you said, you're running around and trying to save this person's life, and he's going to give you a bad review because it took you an hour to bring the toothbrush and toothpaste or something.
Yeah, and it's true. And then what are you gonna like? You could base it off numbers as well. It's easier for sales because you could base it off numbers where you have the data right there in front of you. Like, hey, this guy made this much sales. It doesn't matter that you got a bad customer once in a while because it's a game of numbers. Like, the more customers you call, the more money you ultimately make because you can weed out those bad calls. And with nursing care, we can't really do that. Like, let's say somebody comes in with a central line that was placed at home, and now they're septic. Like, is that your fault because they went septic? Their WBCs were borderline when they came in, borderline high, but they weren't still high. And now, 2 days later, he's now septic. And is it because you didn't catch it on time? No, because the patient was septic already coming in. But you gotta, like, that's hard to show on paper. All they're gonna see is patient came with WBCs of this, this, and this, because you don't have a story attached to each paper that you see. Like, when you do sales, you just have numbers. You don't have how the patient acted, how you responded. You just have numbers. Say when you just show numbers, a lot of times the story is hidden with the numbers. Like I said, if somebody comes with borderline WBCs and next day they have elevated WBCs, is it because you caused a sepsis? No, but it's gonna show that, hey, you had this patient for 3 days and now he's septic. Yeah, but the pick was placed before he got here. He was not compliant. This, and this. That's hard to show on paper.
So it'd be cool, but be looking at it from a rational standpoint. It'd be very hard to track to give these incentives based on outcomes.
Yeah, I'm for it. I provide great patient care, so I'll be all for it. But just say if you can gauge properly, then yeah.
Peter puts baby powder on everybody's butt at night.
Actually, I mean, yeah. Sometimes I like, to be honest, if I see some redness, dude, because, I understand.
Go grab the cream right away.
You know what I'm saying? I understand, like, chafing, a lot of times, you chafe, you're playing sports.
What's chafe for some people?
Like when you have, how when you have
your skin,
like a redness is like your skin's getting kind of cut by your underwear or by your shorts if you're playing
usually in the groin area.
In the groin area, and it burns, so I can imagine if you're sitting in a hospital bed, you've been there for 4 days and you got, you're chafing. That pain's always there. You can't move, especially if you're heavier. You gotta put some cream on there because that's uncomfortable, and they can't get rid of that. They're stuck. They can't move, And
so you're the cream man.
Dude, yeah, a little bit real good.
Nice. Sometimes I like to do that too. You're kind of washing the patient's back and you kind of clap them, rub them, just kind of give them that little, I don't know. They like it. They like it. I know they do. Those ventilated patients, when I rub their back a little bit,
heart rate goes up a little bit, huh?
Yeah. They feel that love energy just coming into them, and it just gives them that tingling sensation. And
there you go.
We say hallelujah.
Right,
3 a.m. giving a bath. Okay.
Next question: does working more hours impact the quality of work done by nurses? So is this like
maybe this
12 hours? Is 12 hours worse than 8 hours, or vice versa?
And we already talked about this. We know we like 12 hours. We like the 4 days off because being 5 days or 4 days in the hospital drive me nuts. So that's out of the loop. But this is maybe, let's just look at this question like overtime. If you did pick up a 4th shift, it's going to definitely affect the quality.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's been studies that's shown, not specifically on nursing, but in like cubicle environments or like business corporation, things like that. Not in the healthcare area, just like other areas where where they do mostly 9 to 5s. And they did studies on those, like a 12-hour shift versus like an 8-hour shift. The 8-hour shift does show to be more productive than 12-hour shifts.
Okay.
But that was out of medical field. I'm not sure what the studies show in medical field, but I would definitely not want to do 8-hour shifts. We did 8-hour shifts in Oakland, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. But I feel like I had to work every day, on top of everything else I had to do. I feel like when I do 12s, I at least get the stretch of like at least 4 days off in a row. So I prefer for a 12. But do I think it impacts care for nurses? I don't think so, actually. I think for nurses it makes better care because you're going to be switching off to one nurse instead of 2.
Yeah.
When you switch off more reports, things get lost. You forget to mention things, and a lot of times medical errors happen that way.
And then also we talked about like the accountability because when you're working a 12-hour shift, you're gonna usually see that nurse back. So if you effed up some shit, you might get it, brought up back. But if you're working 8 hours, you could get away with things, and you're not gonna hear it from that nurse because you're not gonna see him again because there's gonna be another nurse when you come back because you're doing 3 shift rotations, which is another thing for accountability.
Yeah, I like them. I would definitely, I prefer 12, but I don't think it really impacts work that much, if any, doing 12. So.
And this kind of leads to the other question where, do you see negative health effects resulting from taxing hours? And I think so, yes. And it's not necessarily the hours that we do because working, let's just say average 37, 38 hours a week, almost 40, right? That doesn't affect me. But what affects me is the amount of work I'm doing in those hours when it comes to stress or they keep moving the supply areas around. So I'm running around looking for supplies, which makes shit hard for me. Then things aren't properly, what is it called? Stored. I'm looking for equipment. So sometimes the scavenger part of nursing is more taxing and it gets aggravating because then you have to worry about the patient care and all that.
Yeah, for me, I do. At least I believe I do a good job of separating myself from the work. But the thing that is hard to separate is like the sleep, like doing night shift. Like it's always hard. That first day out of work is always hard to transition back. So I don't, I don't think. Let's see, negative. Are negative health effects on the patient or negative health effects on us? Is this question
This is about us.
about us? Okay,
This
yeah,
is self love.
yeah. Well, definitely. If you work a lot of hours, especially in a high stressful job like nursing, you're gonna tire yourself out. You're gonna be that nurse that is 40 years old but looks 60. Things like that. You gotta be able to manage yourself outside of work. Because a lot of these nurses I talk to, like I'm hanging out with them outside of work, and they're thinking about work. I'm like, why are you thinking about work? Like, oh, because I wonder if I did this or I should have done this.
It's bad.
Like it's like there's sometimes you do think back on patients and how how their disease progressed. Like that's fine. But if you're thinking about so into it where you're like, damn, I should have brought that bedpan that one time or something. Something like little thing like that. Like,
If it has a negative spin where it's like, oh, I should have done this but this was the outcome, that will mess with you.
Yeah.
But if you have a patient that's like been in the unit for 20 days and you don't get him that day, you're like, hey, how's Mr. Smith doing? And you kind of want to see how he's doing, and it gets you happy when he's progressing.
yeah, it's true. And then also, does it bring up poor health effect for the patient? I believe so. Yeah, because if I feel overworked, probably not gonna do things as accurate as I would normally do when I was awake, fully functional. 100%. Because that night number 3 for me, not so much. For me, the hardest night is night number 1, getting used to staying up the whole night. But night number 2 and 3 are usually okay for me. But a lot of nurses, their worst night is night number 3. That's when they kind of just are kind of overworked because they just work 2 nights. Maybe those 2 nights were busy, and now here's your 3rd night. It's still busy, and you're kind of just tired. So you kind of try to take shortcuts, or you put off certain tasks for later on in the night, and then you don't get to them, and things like that happen. Or like I said, you miss something. You're prone to doing less work, and just because not because you want to, but you're physically tired, and you're mentally not in it.
No, I completely agree, man. And on top of night shift, 3 nights in a row, you're like fatigued, and like that critical thinking is a little bit, it's harder to access it. Because like, I almost feel like nursing is almost like a state of flow sometimes. Like you get into the zone where you know exactly what's going on down and you're getting your shit done. And then that 3rd day, it's just hard to access that, and you get distracted easily, or you can't think, or you can't put the two together, or you start walking back and forth for the silly stuff because you forgot where things are.
Right. Yeah, like I said, for me, the first day back is always the worst. It's always a slow start. I'm just like, damn, it's I'm so tired. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. But night number 2 and 3, they're actually pretty chill. I'm actually probably better on my 3rd night than I am on my first night.
Especially if you have the same patients.
Yeah, because then you're kind of just like, I'm going home tomorrow. Just be a little extra. Joke around with the patient a little more because you do feel good that you're off the next day. But yeah, but some nurses really struggle if they do 3 in a row, and then at 3rd night they're always like heavy eyes and just tired, dragging their feet, things like that.
Maybe we should end this one soon, huh?
One more
We're
question.
approaching another 40 minutes.
Am I supposed to do the last question? So should nursing unions become more popular?
And that's something that has been really sparking my interest in the past few weeks, months, and just being in Oakland and seeing it. I feel like we keep taking shit from these hospitals, and we keep just, they keep changing the grid. They keep changing this. They keep making our conditions harder to work, and we still have to do it. We can't say no. That's the effed up part. We don't have the backing of a union. And I used to hate the unions because I used to work at UPS, and the lazy people used to just take advantage of it. And they used to do the bare minimum, and they did that. And they pissed the management off, and they couldn't do anything about it. But when it comes to patient care and nurses always having the best interest of the patient, unions would help because they would protect us. They would guarantee us these breaks and lunches that we're not getting here, and it would just create better working environments for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think nursing unions are different from any other unions because as nurses, we generally go into nursing wanting to help somebody.
Yeah, so we have the right intentions.
Exactly. We have the right intention. That's why a lot of times you get overworked because it's hard for us to say no because it does involve patient care because we know if, we don't do a little extra, patients are going to suffer. And there's times where, you got to say no to the little extra, but a lot of times we're more inclined to say yeah and get overworked. Especially with these unions, you get more standards of care, I would say.
Yeah.
Everything is more standardized. Everyone knows their role. But I've only worked with one union, and that was in Oakland. I know you've worked with UPS and saw some negatives of the unions because it is hard to hire people and or not hire people but fire people because your union you're bound by contracts, and a lot of times there's issues with management and the actual employees. Butting heads. It's hard to agree on things because nurses want one thing, managers want one thing, and if they get into like a rivalry, it's not healthy. And there's union dues where some people don't want to pay the percentage of their income for union dues. But when I looked it up online, it was like 400 or 500 a year, which I don't think it's even
It's
that
not
bad.
bad.
Yeah, for you to get your break and for you to have a guaranteed job, a guaranteed raise, and just the fact that you have the union book that states what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
That just physically helps a lot. You kind of know your limits and you kind of know your scope of practice a little
Yeah,
more.
even if you mentioned their guaranteed raises, yeah, right now we have like a merger between two healthcare systems, and we were supposed to get a raise in October, but we're not. We're not getting a raise till January because there's conflicting raises and they have to figure out a system. Well, you know what? I'm quitting in November, so now I need to call them next year and hey, this hospital, I have to get my back pay for a month. And I left, and that's going to be something I have to do. So you're right. Unions allow for that to happen, and because there's unions, you're going to be less stressed out. You may be more prone to picking up an extra shift or two, right? That's going to pay for that extra $500 annually that you're paying for the union. So I'm really for it. I wish maybe we could start something, man. Like that's totally possible. We could push something for that. You better best believe if you push for it in your hospital, you might get fired.
Yeah, you might.
But it's all about numbers. If you get a big majority of people to do this with you, or like, look, they're striking, they're doing nursing, it's going to happen. They're not going to fire a whole hospital. They'll fire you, but if you're...
They can't technically fire you for wanting to start a union.
Trust me, dude,
But
shit
they can
happens,
find,
dude.
yeah, you won't get fired for starting a union, but you'll get fired for, like...
They'll make sure you
yeah,
did something.
like suboptimal patient outcomes or something like that or something, or they could just tell you you're not really fit for this union or you're not really fit for this unit. But yeah, a lot of times the main issue like everywhere else is just the cost. The hospital has to pay 25%, 35% more of their income devoted to nurses. Like that's like the CEO is getting less money and vice presidents and all those people, but the benefits go to nurses. But benefits could go to anybody. But some hospitals I know have like nurses union but don't have tech unions. Or they have like physician unions, but don't have nursing unions. And
yeah,
then we have
just
all
like Northwestern when Jake brought up that the techs are unionized, but the nurses aren't. And that creates a problem where the techs are like, okay, well, I did my 10 tasks for this, and I'm going to sit my ass down. That would piss a nurse off, right? Because you have to have that intention of doing the care for the patient. They don't want to.
Yeah, like we said, it's not numbers. You can't say this patient's going to need 10 tasks, this patient's going to need 12 tasks. It's not how it works.
But that's how the union protects you. And that's that double-edged sword that sucks. You just need people with the right intentions.
Yeah, that's true. All right. That's about all I have to say.
Jesus, that was a good one, huh?
Yeah. My neck hurts.
If you guys like these kind of episodes, whoever listened this long, let us know where we're kind of more free balling it. We're just kind of talking about some shit instead of being very centered on a topic like plant-based diet or keto. And, we're going to get guests soon, too, so it's going to be a little bit different where you're going to hear more of another person talking and less of us.
Yeah. Should be cool. Should be fun.
It will be. Guys, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Love you all. Make sure you guys balance your chakras. It feels great.
All right.
Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Keep it smooth.